I see you looking out the window.
Yes, it looked like Scott Shannon and Mitchell Stewart is with them. Mitchell Stewart is the filmmaker behind Worst to First, the true story of Z100 New York, which, by the way, it will be available tomorrow on all the VOD platforms, Apple, Amazon, Google Play, Vudu, Microsoft, everywhere. They'll be on cable platforms. You won't be able to go anywhere. And look who's here live from atop the Empire State Building.
Good morning.
Scott Shannon is here with Mitchell Stewart. What's going on, Scott? How are you, man?
By the way, this is what an ass I am. I almost told Scott, pull the mic closer, and I'm like, you're going to fucking tell Scott how to talk into a microphone.
I just came to thank Sam for everything he's ever done for my career. This guy beat the crap out of me. He just beat the holy shit out of me for years, and now all of a sudden one day he figured out it wasn't me. And then he was on Team Scott. He created Team Scott. Yeah, he's the one behind. There's a tree on my house,
and we never liked it, but Sam insisted.
Yeah. I don't know what you guys are talking. That wasn't me. That was a different.
You're the same guy that did. Wait a minute. What was the other? Oh, the boat movie.
I forgot about the boat movie.
Oh, I didn't.
The boat movie.
I would listen to that show, Scott. I have to tell you, and there would be moments where you would make a comment. And just nobody in the room would acknowledge it. And I'd go, gold. Gold. Yeah. This is exactly what I'm looking for.
Because you can hear underlying tension. When you're in a situation that has underlying tension, you can hear it on other.
Well, it was weird because I had a contract, and it was a good contract. But if I wanted to get out, I couldn't have gotten out. And it was obvious that the person I worked with wanted to be the whole enchilada. He didn't want me around there. So, and he would, drop little hints about, the guy, well, are you still going to do this again? Yeah, I'm going to do it as long as I can do it.
Yeah.
I enjoy what I do. And I could do any kind of radio. I would love to do, anything.
He would try to push you into retirement? Like, are you still going to? That's always so transparent. Like, Jim, can you imagine if I was like, Jim, why don't you think about doing less shows?
Why don't you sleep in a little bit, Jim?
Yeah.
You don't have to do this. I mean, you're on the road a lot. Why you don't have to do this?
No, he tries to get me in other ways, though. He'll be like, Jim, you don't need condoms. What are you
doing? Now, that's pretty slick.
Yeah, he's trying to slowly kill me. And I didn't really, dude, I knew about you, but I didn't know that you started that format. Like, it's really amazing watching this.
Zoo.
It's such a good documentary.
Thank you. No one knows that Scott.
You got to tell him.
Yeah, you got to be on the mic, yeah.
You can handle that.
No one knows that Scott started Z100.
Yeah.
Like, it's amazing. I got to do a lot of commercials for Z100 over the years, and you just think Z100 always is.
Right.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah.
And then you see a moment in the film with Gavin DeGraw where he said, he thought we're doing a Scott doc. And I go, no, dude, we're doing a doc about Z100. He said, Scott started Z100? I go, yeah, dude, and you're in the movie.
Let me tell you a funny story. That just reminded me of this weird story. When we were, I worked for like 4 or 5 different owners over at WPLJ here in New York. And new people come in, and I was the program director. And I had enough experience. I've been a program director since the 70s, for God's sakes. I should know at least what I'm doing. So I had these 2 brothers who their dad started this company called Cumulus.
Oh.
And their dad was very successful, but it was a media market, smaller towns and radio stations. But they took over and they bought the old ABC chain, New York, Los Angeles, Chicago. And these 2 kids, like Harvard and Stanford and business school and all that kind of thing. So, and these 2 guys really thought they knew what they were doing. Well, they were good in the smaller markets and the media markets, but they came into these big city situations and they thought, well, we'll take care of this. And so one of the first things they did was take away my job as program director. They brought this young kid in from some town in like Pueblo, Colorado or something, and he's going to be my boss. So I don't mind. I'd get off early and go play golf and just do the morning show. And I went in to say hello to him, and I'm talking to him, and I said, "Where'd you learn? How'd you learn radio?" Well, I grew up in New Jersey, and I listened to Z100. I said, "Really?" I said, "Really?" And he's talking. We're talking about it, and then I went to work at a Subway store, right? He didn't start in radio. He didn't start in radio. He started Subway. So he said,
good too.
And Scott, I was so good at it that they promoted me to manager in Poughkeepsie.
Oh, wow.
He was sent to Poughkeepsie to manage. He's no longer just going to make the freaking sandwiches. He's going to run the place.
Wow.
Right?
Clearly a savant.
Yeah. So he's in there. He says, it just so happened that the local radio station, K104, would come in and I'd make their sandwiches there. And I said, really? And they said, yeah. I asked him if I could come by and look at the station. And I loved that. I looked and I saw, this is for me. I should be doing this right here. So he would hang around more, and he got to work there. They wouldn't let him talk. He just ran the board. Because after all, he's at Subway. Yeah. So he finally gets a job at K104, and then from there he went to Colorado, and then he went to he went to PLJ. So he's telling me the whole boring story, and I go like this. Did you know, I realized that I don't think he knows that I worked there. I said, did you know I worked there? He goes, you worked at Z100? And this is my boss. Yeah. So I go home, I tell my wife, it might be time for me to get the hell out of this business. And eventually, the station shut down. They went out of business.
Yeah.
After you took care of that.
I did. You know what? I tell you what my favorite part of the documentary was, and it made me feel better about everything. Because, it's like, you shit on people on the radio,
right?
And then you forget that they're actual human beings.
Yeah.
Just
you forget about it, yeah.
But I saw you on Z100 shitting on everyone. I mean, he had like the list of stations just talking about how lousy every single person was. And I was like, so he's got no grounds.
And he called them out by name.
Yeah. By name.
Which people didn't do back then. That was kind of an unheard of thing to really reference them personally and to admit when you guys weren't doing well, you were like, we suck, which nobody was saying at that time.
Yeah.
Well, it was funny because one of our targets was of the competition at the time. We had NBC, where Howard was doing afternoons, doing great, and WPLJ. Right before we put Z100 on the air here in New York, PLJ tried to, advance, what do they call it, when you flank us or whatever, and they started playing Michael Jackson. They'd been a rock station, a really great rock station for so long, and all of a sudden they're playing Michael Jackson and all the latest top 40, they're Duran and all this stuff, And so when I got on the air, I said, one of the reasons I came here, I thought I was excited because I could listen to PLJ, one of the great rock stations, and all of a sudden the idiots are playing top 40 music, and it's PLJ. I went, it's all of a sudden turned wimpy, which was a big word right there. I said, so I rebranded it the Wimp, W-I-M-P. I said, I think they changed their call letters to W-I-M-P. And the program director, you might remember Larry Berger.
I didn't know Larry Berger.
Didn't know him? But he was the head of the thing. He's now gone, so I'm going to be kind.
Yeah.
So we changed his name to Larry Booger. and we had a stunt guy. Hell, it's a little Larry Booger. I'm over here at WIMP, and here's the new one by Debbie Boone. That kind of crap. So one of my record buddies, one of the promotion guys, said he took Larry to dinner one night, and he went he had to pick up his laundry at this Chinese laundry in the city on the east side where he lived, and he goes in there, and he said, I need to pick up my laundry. Who are you? He said, Larry Booger. He says, you mean like Larry Booger? He said Larry Berger. He said Larry Booger. And he said, no, I'm not effing Larry Berger. I'm Larry Berger, not Booger. So, I never got to meet him, but we made life pretty rough on him.
Yeah.
You also, by the way, I have this, I've read your bio, I have everything, but of course it's the picture of you and Kiss. I'm very fiercely jealous because that's like the Destroyer tour costume. There's nothing I would like in life more. And you gave me a great photo, a beautiful photo, which I have in my apartment of the first picture ever taken.
I framed it too.
Yes, you did. And you wrote a nice note, which I have. And did you have anything to do with Beth? Is that I've heard that?
Yeah.
Can you explain that? Because I've never heard you tell it.
I got fired from a job in Atlanta, Georgia, and it was I took them to number one, well, tied for number one, and the general manager didn't care for me, so he fired me, and I was pissed off. So I'm gonna punish the radio business. I'm gonna leave. Now you talk about a stupid idea. I'm so pissed. I'm gonna stop doing what I do. So I love music. So I went to work at Casablanca Records in Los Angeles as director of promotion and A&R. And I got to know the owner, the guy who ran it, guy named great broadcaster named Neil Bogart, great record guy. And he said, "Here's your job. I want you to get Kiss played on top 40 radio." Because then they weren't hip enough for rock stations to play them.
Right.
It was these guys that dressed up, and they weren't, shout it out loud and all that kind of thing. They're not going to play them on a top 40 station. Right. So then they work on Destroyer. I think Bob Ezrin was the producer. And Neil called me and says, "Would you listen to this and tell us what's going to be the top 40 song?" And I've listened to, what they have. They had that Detroit Rock City was on there. And I forget all the other songs, but
Shout It Out Loud, Flaming Youth.
Oh, you remember?
Sweet
right.
Pain, Do You Love Me?
What a groupie.
King of the Nighttime World.
Jim, are you a fan of Kiss?
Oh, yeah.
It became clear to me as a documentarian.
You might even be one of those ones that wound up in bed with Gene Simmons. I don't know. But,
You wish.
So I told her, I said, the only song on there that you could possibly, work with, the top 40 would be Beth. And he says, "Oh, crap, we can't put that out." I said, "What do you mean? You said you want to be on the top 40 stations. I'm telling you how to do it. You put Beth out." And he says, "Well, first of all, asshole," he said, "I'm involved in a terrible divorce with my wife, and her name is Beth." And I said, "Second of all, Gene Simmons, we're a rock and roll band. We're not putting that out. Third of all, they hate the drummer who wrote it and sang it.
Oh, wow.
Peter Criss." So, and they put out Detroit Rock City as the original song. And because this lady who was a big programmer in Detroit on CKLW, which was basically in Canada, but who cares? And
Canadians?
she's going to play that song, and everybody's going to follow her playing that song. I said, well, the people are going to follow. They're not in Detroit, Neil. They're not going to like it quite as much. So they did. I just left it alone. I said, "Well, do me a favor. When you do the 45, just put Beth on the B side. It's a throwaway anyway." So I waited a couple of weeks, and the song didn't do well in Detroit. They dropped the rotation on it. So I took Beth and I sent it out to some of my friends that I knew from radio. And I put the X on that side instead of the other side, so they played that. And all of a sudden, it became number one request in these three little test markets that I used. And then I got it played in Boston, and all of a sudden it takes off. Turns out to be the biggest hit they ever had.
Yeah.
And still pissed Gene Simmons off. So what they did because they had to sing it in concert. You ever see them?
Oh, yes.
You know what? I had a funny feeling you've been to one of their shows. So what they do is, because they did not like Peter Criss, who wrote it and sang it. So what they did was they would all leave the stage and they play the track, and he would sit on a stool.
Wow.
Does this sound familiar?
Yes, he would just sit there and he would hand out roses as he sang it. Yeah.
But that wasn't a stylistic choice. That was because they hated him.
Right.
Wow.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they didn't. Well, they didn't write it.
Yeah.
You got two singers in the group, and he wasn't one of them.
Yeah.
He was the drummer. They just did it. So that's how that came about. But the picture that you have was the first picture ever taken of the group in their outfits. Now, if you looked at it, I'm sure you peeked at it.
Oh, yeah. I've done more than that looking at it. That's an accurate hand movement.
Oh yeah.
But that picture that you have, you notice the uniforms are crude. The outfits are completely different.
Like homemade almost.
Yeah, they were homemade, as a matter of fact. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a nice note from Scott. I love that. It's at the bottom of the picture. I keep it out in the frame as well. It's really nice.
You never wrote a nice note to me.
Well, you did the boat movie.
That's true. No, that's true.
Yes.
That's a good point.
If you do want to write a note to him, assholes with 2 S's.
Well, the thing about it is the fact that I do a morning show here in New York on CBS FM.
Is that 101.1?
That's 101.1. And Jim, back in the day before he became a professional radio entertainer, he would come by and grace us with his presence, and that's how I got to know him.
Yeah, I love it. It was a fun show to do, too. It was like, some guys interview comedians weird, and with you, it was just a hang. It was just a fun hang.
Yeah, that's what it's not like going to Indianapolis where, Bob and Tom put you on there. You ever been there?
I've done their show live once, yeah.
No, nice guys. One of them's retired, but they still call it the Bob and Tom Show. In radio now, if you have a popular show, and something happens to you, you retire or you die, they keep your name now.
At what point in life
weird.
did you realize, too, I'm listening to you talk, and it's like, we both, Sam and I have shit radio voices, like your voice, but it's incredible. And I'm like, at what point in life do you realize, like, this voice is really something different than what most people have?
When I was a kid, I knew right away that I was going to be in radio. I mean, I loved music first. When I discovered rock and roll, I said, what the hell is this? I didn't know. Well, I grew up in a pretty strict home, and and by the time I'm like 11 or 12, I'm just a dud. I'm a dumbass. Playing baseball and football, and I didn't have a girlfriend until I left home. And I found music because that was I locked myself up. I didn't live in the house with my family. I lived in the basement. I made a little room down there. I would stack my dad's Army footlockers up and make a room. And then I had my own top 10 list, and I had a little make-believe radio station. And the funny part about it was I took it from the library on how to make your voice deeper. My mother came in, and I'm laying on the bed, back like this, looking up at the ceiling, and you're supposed to go, and you got to do that and breathe deeper and deeper and deeper. And my voice never changed. So I think it's just, I don't think I have a particularly listenable voice, but it's not terrible.
No, it's really good. I mean, just listening
it's better than ours.
Which is really a very thin line to jump over.
Yeah.
But it's a really good voice.
Yeah, well, you get that watching the doc. Like, there's so many radio people in the documentary that you hear their speaking voices and the way they enunciate their words and the tenor and everything, and you're like, yeah, I don't know what we're doing in this industry, Jim.
Yeah.
like that's not what we sound like.
The thing about it is when you use that delivery, and when I first started, I would imitate a DJ. The actual Mitchell covered this guy in the documentary that we're talking about. And he found a picture of this guy. They used to have this window so you could stop on the street where I grew up in Indianapolis and look at the radio station. You could see him work. So my mother would go shopping on Saturday, and I'd say, just drop me off over there. I'm gonna go. I stood there like an idiot. What's he doing in there? Just watching the DJ work. And I said, man, that looks pretty good. That's the one. He's got music, he's got records, he's got on the radio, he's got headphones, everything. And then you'd see him work the phones. So he came out to see me one day. I'm saying, what are you doing? He said, you come here every Saturday? I said, yeah, I'm trying to get the hang of it. You know what I'm saying? And and then he said, well, I like it because the girls come by and I get the numbers. Well, there's another
selling point. Yeah,
selling point. And I started out imitating this disc jockey who happened to be what we call in the business a puker. Hi, everybody. It's Jay Reynolds here at WIFA. So I would go on the air when my first job. They said, well, you got a tape? I had to leave in a hurry. I didn't bring my tape, but I got a lot of experience. You really do? I hadn't been anywhere. The closest I got to a radio station was looking through that freaking window. So when I get on, I go, hi, everybody. It's Mike Shannon here on the WFLB, Spring Lake, North Carolina. And then as I got a little bit more, I said, well, this sucks. I'm going nowhere with this. So finally, I just started. It became the fastest mouth in the South. I changed my name from Shannon to Super Shan. I thought that'd be a good nickname.
Yeah.
Try that today. Yeah. If this doesn't work out, you can have that. Jim, you can be that. So anyway, that's how it got started. But I actually was a puker to begin with.
How long into it when you're doing that, do you go, this is not enough? I don't want to just play records. I want to say what I want to say. I want to have fun on the air. Like, at what point does it become more than just playing records?
When I got to be, for a while, I worked for different program directors, and most of them were idiots. Not all of them, but most of them were just idiots. And I knew more I studied it. I mean, I studied every market and every disc jockey that was famous. And, well, you didn't have the internet there, but there was Billboard magazine and all that kind of thing. And I got tired of working for a-holes. And so what I did was this job came up at where I was working. The guy was leaving. I told the boss, I could do this. I'll be the program director. He said, well, you're the DJ. I said, I know, but you can do both. I'll do both for you, and you don't have to pay me any more money. That's how smart I was.
Yeah.
Well, we were good. Okay. Deal.
There was one time I got a job, and I'm sitting there, and the guy's got that. Remember those metal desks with the little nice Formica top on them? And I'm sitting there, and it's a blue metal desk. I'll never forget it. And I was going to move from Mobile to Memphis. And the guy sitting behind this the desk, he goes, well, how much you need to make? I said, well, whatever you got. I don't care. I just want to be a DJ, Yeah, well, how about $17,000 a year? I go, what's wrong? I said, I'm trying to figure out how much that is, because I only know by the week. How much is that a week? I didn't know if I was getting a raise or not.
I think one of the most fascinating things about the doc is also like watching you create the Morning Zoo format, just because that's another thing. Like, as much as Z100 has always been, like, for me, the Morning Zoo format is like one of the staples of radio now, like to the point where not only, like you said, is the Z100 morning show still to this day called the Z Morning Zoo, but there's a Morning Zoo in literally every market. I went to Syracuse.
Yeah.
And I don't even know if you know that, like, WJPZ is the channel, it's like the college radio station up there.
What happened?
It was the only place that would let me in. But WJPZ is designed to be a direct, and they say, we're just copying Z100. Yeah. That's how we teach kids now. We just copy Z100, and that's how kids are taught. Number one, how do you feel about the way the format has kind of continued? And number two, don't you think you should be able to patent that? Because I was also thinking, you're not getting any of the money from the fact that everybody is stealing your format.
Sam, just a minute. I came up here to talk to Jim and just have fun. This is like 60 minutes. Scott, let me ask you a question. Where do you think I got that? I talked to a guy yesterday on the talk station in Atlanta. Where do you think radio's going, Scott? How the hell do I know? I'm lucky to be still working in it.
It is. But you do recognize how influential you've been. Like, you changed everything. Like, it's really influential.
It would drive me crazy if I created a format.
Sure.
And everybody copied it. And either they sucked or I didn't get any money for it.
Well,
that would drive me crazy.
Once again, remember I told you I was a dumbass when I started. And it got worse. Because when we did the Morning Zoo, it was actually in Tampa when we started it. And I had a friend of mine, he's now a friend, but at the time he was the morning guy. And they they hired me. The way I got to do mornings was kind of funny because I was working in Washington, D.C. for an absolute moron. I was the program director, but this guy didn't think I was good enough to be on the radio. Wouldn't let me on the radio. He didn't think I was a good disc jockey. His college roommate owned the station, who happened to be Mr. Marriott from the Marriott hotel organization.
Wow.
So he said, "Can you get me a job? I don't have a job." He said, "Well, I'll let you run the station in D.C. You can do that." "Oh, yeah, I can do that. No problem." So they fired me, and I had just met this girl that I kind of liked. Excuse me. And all of a sudden, I got to move. Because when you're the program director, nobody in town knows you. But when you're the morning DJ, when they fire you know what you do? You go across the street and kick the holy crap out of them. So I figured out I was, an afternoon DJ, maybe a night DJ, whatever. So I said, I want to be a morning DJ. So I had several different job offers. At that point, I had a pretty good reputation as a programmer, but I had to learn how to be a morning guy. So this station in Tampa had been through some difficult times. They had some competition, and they went from 2nd to 18th or whatever. And they said, "Will you come and fix the station?" I said, yeah, I'll do that, but you got to let me do the morning show. The guy said, "You never did the morning show." I said, "Well, I'm going to do one for you, or I won't fix your station." Okay. He went, "Okay, vote of confidence, right?" "Well, okay, if you want to blackmail me, okay." And so I met with the guy who was already there, who was a pretty good morning guy, and he did some comedy voices, and all that kind of stuff. So I sat him down and said, "I want to do kind of a new show." He thought I was going to fire him and take over his job. I said, "I need somebody to teach me how to do a morning show. You can't go anywhere." And we talked, and I had a notepad, and we spent. I think we had a bottle of Canadian Club, and I was at the Tampa hotel at the airport. There's a hotel at the airport in Tampa, and we just sat there. And we ordered lunch up. We spent like 5 hours, and I basically laid out what I wanted to do. And I kind of made it up as I went. There was a radio show out of Chicago my dad used to listen to called The Breakfast Club, some guy named Don McNeil. And he had guests on the show. He had a band who would play the music, and it was syndicated all across the country. And you felt like you were having breakfast with this guy, or you were in his family, because he had like 3 or 4 different people. This guy did this guy did that. And I thought about that in Saturday Night Live, where they do the skits and all that. And I kind of put the two together. I welded them together, and heavy listener participation. There's several elements, but we put them all down there. And then we needed a name. And, there's all kinds of, just call it the Zoo. And Cleveland Wheeler, who was going to be my partner, he goes, "All right, I'm good with that."
Right.
And he was a big part of it. The guy had a lot of talent. He did voices and he wrote well. And within 6 months of signing on, we were the #1 rated morning show in the whole country.
Wow.
And we had Morning Zoo jingles and all that, because at that time, Sam, everybody had gone backwards. They had a couple of shows like that around the country, but basically Top 40 Radio had gone back to a single guy with a news chick over here, and that was it. There was no fun.
What mistake? Do you think they've made any mistakes? Because it seems like with satellite and podcast, there's so many other ways now. Do you think regular radio has made any mistakes that they could have avoided?
Oh, yeah. Well, you can thank Bill Clinton for that when he deregulated radio. It used to be, you could only have one owner, 1 or 2 stations a market. Mm-hmm. And then when he passed the law, this isn't going to change radio. Bullshit. It changed radio completely, because then hedge funds and big companies went to these mom and pop stations and bought them. And now they've got clusters. You look at iHeartRadio here in New York, they got like 6 or 7 radio stations, and they run them all. And what happens, they paid so much money for these stations that they have to run more commercials. And that's where SiriusXM came in.
Right.
It used to be we only ran 8, 9 minutes an hour. Now it's 15, 14, like that.
Yeah.
I never it would have even occurred. I knew that when Bush was president, and they I think they tenfolded the fines. It was the 3,500 to 35,000 per FCC offense. But I never even thought about that deregulated. Yeah, I guess that's what started the whole thing.
Yeah, and the fact that you
over commercials.
And all the commercials, and pretty soon they just wanted to cut it to the bone. A lot of stations got, now you got automation. You got some stations, like in a town like, let's just say Peoria, Illinois, you won't find maybe one or two live DJs in the whole broadcast community there.
Yeah. Right. How did you end up leaving Z100?
That's a hard question. You're the only guy that's asking the hard questions. I like talking to Jim.
Yeah,
I gotta think. Well, what happened was when I do radio, I always last 2 or 3 years because I like to go and create and build and then move on.
Yeah,
I just get bored easily, and we'd already done Z100, and I had a guy who was working with me then, a guy named Steve Kingston, who used to work at, didn't he work at
K-Rock, right?
XM? Yeah, he worked at K-Rock, worked with Howard for a while. But anyway, he was, him and I were pretty close, and he could run things, and I said, you know what? My work is done here, and this guy was building a new station out in California, and he wanted, he overpaid for it, and so he was up against the wall. So he made me an offer, just kept up more money. It's the only time I ever did anything for money, and obviously it didn't work out too well because I'm back in New York. But I lasted 2 years, and I made great money. But that's just, anybody that sits around and you make life decisions based on money, it usually doesn't work out.
What time do you go to bed? Because morning radio is such a rough... I was never able to get on that pure morning guy schedule.
Jim, let me give you one tip. When you're talking to morning people, don't ask that question. Because when I go to like somebody's house for dinner or something like that, or you go to a party or whatever, here's 3 things. Hey, what time you go to bed?
Yeah, I guess so.
Wait a minute. Hold on. Yep. That's one. That's one. And the next one is, well, what time you go to sleep?
Yeah.
And then the third one is, does it ever get old?
Yeah.
And then comes number 4. How much longer are you going to do this?
Well, here's why.
Which is hilarious because you've been doing morning radio for so long. I'm sure every day people ask.
They do, but for me, it's like my schedule. We did 6 to 10, then 6 to 11 at one point, but now we're 8 to 11, which is more manageable. But I go out and I do a set at the club. I'm home by 9 o'clock, but I can't fall asleep. Like I can't fall asleep till 12 or 1 a.m. And when I was doing 6 a.m., it was torture. I don't know how anybody ever adjusted their life to that.
Well, if you're doing a show like I do, it's a lot of preparation, and you really got to.
What is that?
You really got to get there. You really got to get there early.
Oh, so you arrive early too?
Yeah.
Oh, I walk in this morning as the theme song started. I like to just walk in.
Yeah. And by the way, when you did that, nobody went, "Oh, where's Jim? He's late." They're
No,
like, no, he'll be here when the theme song.
And our product is a reflection of the lack of preparation.
Don't you worry, it'll be all right. Well, I think you have to know more than the people who are listening about a lot of things.
So, dude, literally today, we were just having a conversation and we said, isn't it great that when you do radio, you could just say some shit and a lawyer or somebody will call up and tell you you're wrong and then it's fine.
So you don't have to tell them you're wrong.
Yeah, they'll tell you. Like, it's a complete opposite philosophy. Like, you're just wrong about everything.
Thank you for your call. I appreciate that, but we don't give a rat's ass if it's right or not.
And there's a thing in the documentary, too, which I had no idea about you, that you had you were involved with the early part of Madonna's career, which I don't know if you get the credit for.
We might have blown that a little out of, what do they say? They say, well, it's a movie. No, we were like a rage when it first started. The funny thing about it is we never said New York City weather. The only thing we said was Z100 forecast or, from the top of the Empire State Building. But we had no phones. People didn't know what it was because it wasn't WNBC. Right. It wasn't WABC. People never heard anything like this. We didn't play a bunch of commercials. We didn't go commercial free because WAPP tried that in the summer of back a long time ago, and then they added commercials, and everybody says, oh, "What the hell?
Right.
I thought you weren't. I thought you weren't playing commercials." Well, we were for a while, but now we got to.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of weird because people would write us, "What is this? What do you mean? What is this?" We finally. The problem was we were in New Jersey, and there'd never been another successful radio property from New Jersey before. And a lot of people thought that was a jinx because if you were in New Jersey, especially Secaucus.
Yeah.
It was not just New Jersey. It was Secaucus.
Right. So what happened was we couldn't run any contest or open the phone lines because there was never a radio station there that had any listeners, and they had to have that special phone that all the radio stations have special phones.
Right.
Because you can knock out that entire, part of the city or all of Secaucus if people call and it knocks out the phones.
Right.
So we had to get whatever they call it. We had to actually hook up some kind of microwave from Secaucus into a New York line because they had contest lines. The phone company had contest lines that we wouldn't blow up the entire, not the metropolitan. It doesn't do the whole thing. It's in sections.
Right.
And so when they first started calling, people would say, "Where are you?" "Hello, Z100. What is this?" It was just different because we had one stop set, one commercial break, and we just talked to people, and all the other stations were, "Hey, everybody, WPLJ," and we were just talking to people.
From the top of the Empire State Building was so brilliant too. What a brilliant way to
Carney
sell it.
line.
Yeah.
Like the most Carney thing ever.
I remember we had a guy. We had our boss, the guy who ran it in Cleveland, thought we needed an ad agency. I said, "Well, I don't know. Why are you going to waste your money? We can do this ourselves." And he said, "No, we got to get an ad agency. All the stations have ad agencies." So we met with this big time, great ad agency. I will not tell you the name because he's still around. And we're got a whole table full of guys. I got a T-shirt on. I'm hungover. I got shorts on in the middle of this fancy Manhattan place. He said, "You know what? I don't know if this is going to work or not under your current marketing program." I, "What's wrong?" He says, "Well, friends, you say you're from the Empire State Building. Everybody's on the Empire State Building." And I go, "Yeah, but nobody says they are." He says, "Well, they can." I said, "But they're not, idiot." And so finally, I called Mr. Maltz out in the hall, and I said, "We'll be right back. Hold on a minute." I said, "Mr. Maltz, I'm going to go ahead and leave." He said, "What do you mean? These guys are idiots. They don't understand radio." He said, "Well, I gave them a deposit of $10,000. I said, "Let them have it. Let's go." And sure enough, you know what he said? He went back inside. "This isn't for us. Thanks, guys." And we left.
Wow.
Smart. And that was coming from Tampa to New York, right?
Yeah. I was here already. We were on the air at that time. And it was just weird because we did the campaign ourselves. And one of the guys in the movie, who was our sales manager, said in the documentary, says,
Michael Ellis.
No, it wasn't I said the sales manager, Gary Fisher.
Gary Fisher.
How long were you working on it, movie?
I'm kind of blanking on it.
He's our director, by the way. And anyway,
it's in my rearview mirror until this weekend.
And the thing about it was, he made a point, and I never thought of this. He says, "We might have had the first viral campaign in the history of radio,
Really?
Because it's just all word of mouth. There's some commercials in that movie, but we were already on the air 2 years when we started TV commercials."
I feel like your marketing strategy is similar to your strategy of like being the program director as well. It seems like a lot of your steps are like, "I'll do it for free." And it's all right.
Well, it was kind of funny when they I wasn't sure I wanted to leave Tampa, and they flew me into Cleveland. And then it's all in the movie to see what happened. And I don't want to repeat that, but I went ahead and said, "Okay," because basically all these old guys were smoking cigarettes, and I was hungover, and I had my eyes were all red, and I'm sitting there. I got a tie on. I hate wearing a tie. I had it loosened up, and I'm sweating, and the collar is all messed up on my, So finally I said, I got to get out of here. You guys, thank you for having me. And I walked out to the elevator, and the owner went, oh, where you going? I said, I don't like cigarette smoke. I'm going home. And he said, whoa, you're our guy. You're the guy. I said, oh, okay, well, that's easy. Why don't we do that in the first place? So I went down there with the station manager down. There's a bar downstairs, and I needed a drink by that time. And there's a bar and a little restaurant down there. And we sat there and we worked out the details, and we turned over a placemat because he said, I got to catch a plane. I got to get out. I got to go back on the air tomorrow morning in Tampa. So he wrote out the contract on the back of the placemat. And he said, sign here. Okay. I get on the plane. I go like this. What did I just do? I'm going home. I was like, what the hell happened? It's like, when you ever watch Law and Order when they beat the kid up till he tells you, yeah, I did it. Yeah. Well, that's basically what happened to me. I go like, well, I don't know what the hell to do in New York. I never lived there. Well, I had been there a couple of times, but I didn't know anything about it.
Yeah. For somebody that was so comfortable, whether it was leaving meetings or like leaving a station after a couple of years or this or that, how much money was WPLJ giving you that they kept you there for as long as you were there?
At PLJ?
Yeah. I mean, you were there. You were PLJ forever. Is that
20 years, right?
At that point in your life, did you just get tired of leaving?
I got tired of leaving. Well, by that time, I was married and had a baby. And that kind of changed everything,
Yeah.
But you enjoyed that, I'm sure, for a while. I'm sure you had fun there for a while.
I had fun for a while, and the problem was there's nowhere else to go.
Right.
And I was an unhappy time. I mean, I worked with a guy who was hilarious, very, very funny, and there's some drawbacks to that, but I was pretty happy working there. The people I worked for were great. It was wonderful.
How long into it did you go like, maybe this is not what I thought? Like, was there a point where you're like, nah?
Yeah. The day that I just had enough, and I just went, you know what? Because they wanted to do a farewell and a Scott Shannon week and all this, and I finally just said, you know what? I'll tell you what I'm going to do tomorrow morning at about 8 o'clock. I'm going to tell everybody I'm leaving. And I said, I'm retiring from PLJ.
Yeah.
I'm retiring from PLJ.
Right.
That was it.
Hang my jersey up. I'm done here. How good?
That's good, Sam.
How good did it feel to move on and start a new morning show and have it be successful?
The day I walked out of that room, out of that control room, I felt so great.
Yeah.
I felt so wonderful. It was just so great to be out of there. And
do you love that the station tanked and that you did well on CBS?
Oh, that would be horrible to say, but yes. Of course, I went back for the final day on the air.
Oh, you did?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That was to take a victory lap, though. I mean, dance around the flames.
Who was it that won a football game? They went out in the middle and they stomped on the logo. Remember that? That was funny. Yeah,
that's exactly what that's like.
Yes. Yeah, it's easy. It's easy to go back for the last day when you won.
Yeah. How long after did you leave PLJ before you were at your job now?
About 2 weeks.
Oh, that was good luck.
I got good luck. The day I retired from PLJ, I got my wife. We got on a plane. We go right down to Florida, and I'm playing golf every day, and thinking about what I'm going to do. And somebody says, an agent called me and said, would you like to go back to work? I said, call me next week.
Yeah. Yeah, take a little bit of time, relax.
Yeah. And I get bored easily, so I was ready to go back to work. And the people I work for now were very welcoming, and I could put together a good team of people who were run off from the other place before. And what's the word? We're going to put the old team back together.
Yeah.
What did you do in the pandemic? We were all broadcasting from home. Did they build you something at home, or like how did you?
They didn't build me anything. I have a little studio at home, and and we have one of those Comrex boxes everybody's got. Thank you, man. Get my gum. I forgot. I do my show chewing bubble gum. I don't think anybody does that.
Yeah, I've tried. I do it because I love to chew gum because I used to smoke, but then I realized, you can hear it. What do you do? Do you just are you just aware not to chew loudly?
I pack it away back here, and then I start chewing when I close the mic.
Is it
valuable? Put that in your book.
Yeah. Up in the top left corner. Are you addicted to gum? Like I'm kind of addicted to eating and chewing and all that stuff.
It's not shocking.
Yeah, I usually have a chunk in the morning. I don't know. It just keeps me moving, kind of thing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of one of the things about radio. One of the things that Howard used to say that I think is very accurate. There's a lot of scumbags working in this business.
There are.
Yeah. A lot of and it's not as bad as it used to be because they fired just about everybody. There's hardly anybody doing live radio. But there's just so many people that you run into because I paid my dues. Man, I worked Mobile, Columbus, Georgia, Memphis, Tennessee, Nashville, Atlanta, Washington, D.C., Los Angeles, and that's not as many as a lot of people.
Tampa,
forgot Tampa. Yeah. I'll throw them in there. Sorry. And it was funny too because that show in Tampa that you talked about, Jim, was so different because we designed it to be for anytime in marketing. When you say you're going to market to everybody, that's a kiss of death. You can't do that.
Of course.
You have to target somebody, and how you get to a wide variety, how you go that way, is to a narrow target. And we did that. We designed a narrow target. It was like 25 to 35. And we served those people, but we didn't do the usual radio gaga and all that crap. We just entertained ourselves.
Right.
And we found a lot of people like Opie and Anthony used to do. They had a bunch of whacks out there like Howard. Howard did the same thing, whack pack. And we just entertained ourselves and had fun. And it worked. And at that time, when the ratings came out, when they came after me for Z100, we were number one teens, number one 18 to 24, 18 to 34, 25, 54, and 55 plus. We're the only station in the country that had everybody.
Yeah.
And I don't think you could do that again.
No, it's really regular radio. I go on the road for gigs, and there's very few markets that have great regular radio in the morning. Like there's some, like a Boston, you have Toucher and Rich, and Mike Calter's really funny in Tampa.
He's good.
Yeah, and you'll get a bunch of guys, but it's nothing like even it was 10 years ago. There was much more to choose from than there is now.
Yeah. What was it? Who was doing that the other day? Something. I was talking to. Who's the I got to say it right. Who's the little guy that's a stand-up comedian?
Rich Voss?
No, I mean, he's actually a small person.
Brad Williams.
Brad Williams.
Yeah, we had him on the other, and he says he was going like, I got to go around and go, hey, how you doing? Ring the bell. Hit the drum. He does a whole skit about when he goes around to promote his shows. He's really nice, dude.
Yeah.
Did Howard ever give you a hard time when you were opposing morning shows?
Oh, yeah. He and I think in his first book he said, "I hope he gets cancer and dies." Why? A couple of compliments like that. But you got he was especially hard on my wife. Yeah, nasty. But I mean, we got through it, and now we're I'm not going to say friends, but we speak.
How do you take it personally when it's happening?
No, I did at first, but then I realized that he wouldn't have been messing with me if I wasn't successful.
Right.
And he doesn't pick on the bottom guy on the ladder.
Right. And the more personal he goes and the harder he goes, probably the bigger target you are.
Look what he did to that guy in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
DeBella, right?
DeBella. See, DeBella tried to fight back.
Right.
That's where he screwed up.
Right.
I'll show Howard Stern I run Philadelphia. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He lost everything.
Yeah, he did. I think I did. John DeBell, I did his show once. I think he was, if I remember, he was very nice, but he stayed on in Philadelphia.
Yeah, he's still there. He's still on.
Yeah, you never gave me the satisfaction of acknowledging the boat movie thing on the air. I would have loved it.
I think we did. Eventually. Yeah. What Sam would do, he would take tapes from our station, and I'm fairly famous in my world for not remembering names of movies or things like that. I saw that boat movie this weekend, and oh boy,
Yeah.
and I didn't know where it was coming from at first. Somebody said, I go to a theater. Hey, how's the boat movie? Huh? What? Like a DA. What do you mean, boat movie? Okay. And someone said, Oprah and Anthony talk about you all the time. They say you're watching the boat movie.
Was it the Titanic? Was that the movie?
No, it was Captain Phillips, I think.
Yeah,
I think it was.
Right. Yeah, that's a boat movie.
It's the boat movie. Yeah, that and the tree on my house. I got a tree on my house.
I went in one day and there was a whole. Remember that storm that ever ripped all the trees? Yeah, I got a tree on my house today. So who thinks to isolate that and play it? And everybody, and that's like code word, He's got a tree on his house. That's got to be Scott Shannon over there.
Because it was so because the beauty of it wasn't that you said I got a tree on my house. It's that the room didn't give you anything unfairly, right? Like they wouldn't give you anything. And it wasn't the fact that you said I got a tree on my house. It was the fact that there was like 1 second of dead air right after it. Yeah, it's like you sound like a lunatic.
Well, they weren't allowed to, unless Todd said it, they weren't allowed to laugh.
Right. That's right. And so anytime you would drop something, I'd be like, yes, give me more. Give me more.
Yeah. Well, I used to be funny before him, and I was funny after him. But during him, you're not allowed to be funny.
That was weird how that works.
Very strange.
Very strange.
Did you guys ever not that you hate each other, but did you ever mend fences after that? I hate that I just said mend fences like I'm my aunt.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think you got a future in this business.
Yeah, did you mend fences? What a fucking asshole. You shouldn't answer that.
Yeah, you're one of these edgy comics.
Now,
right?
here's my favorite. What time you go to bed?
It really is. I've asked 2 shit questions. That was a horrible question, but mending fences is in my guts. That's going to bother me for a month.
Well, I should mention you can pre-order this whole goofy movie if you're interested. Worst to first, the history of Z100. There's some good lessons in that movie. Our director accidentally put some real valuable stuff in there.
Well, Mitchell, how did you find this story and realize oh yeah, I can make a movie out of this?
Well, when I was first approached, wait, we're actually going to talk about the movie. Thank you, Sam. When I was
he talked about it before we got here. Sam did talk about it.
I did. I'm a professional.
Thank you.
Thank you, man. What time you go to bed?
What time do you wake up?
How you doing? What do you got?
So thank you. So
Tell
Sam,
him.
it was interesting that the story of Scott is so wide. The canvas is so wide. So when you first start looking to make a documentary, you shouldn't go into it knowing what the story is. You should do research and discover the story. And to tell the story of Z100 and to tell Scott's story and to tell a New York story, it came down to those 74 days. Because that's something that no one else ever experienced. That's a story that's unique to Scott and no one else. So to capture that moment and try to capture a little bit of the 80s and capture the sound and voice and how fast it went. That's why people talk about the editing in the movie. It's so fast. It had to be. Because for Scott, it went like... It was
cutting in between 2 people talking. Yeah, there really was. It was very, very well done.
Thank you. It was done intentionally to really have almost a Greek chorus. So it wasn't a matter of doing interviews. It was a matter of taking snippets from each person to complete a statement, because they all then shared that moment of where they were in the 80s when he hit. And there was nothing like it. I knew nothing other than Scott's name, and he was the PLJ guy.
And you know what? Leave it at that. Leave it right there.
And it was a big discovery. So much about his career was a discovery. And it became like the David or Davida versus Goliath story, which I think still holds true today. It's like one person could change everything if they just don't give up. And they're like Scott, and they
don't give up.
Yeah. And they have thick skin and just don't quit. And that's what the movie was about.
I'm spoiled because I know the microphone's okay here, but I've been doing radio for so long, normal radio, that I still can't bring myself to say it.
The cursing,
you could have said it.
I don't know why. It's just, you know what?
It feels good.
Remember when you were a kid and you'd be out with your buddies, mother, and then the minute you go through the door at the house, You turn the switch off.
Turn it off.
You remember that?
Yeah, but it'd be great if we got you comfortable doing it here, and then on tomorrow you show up to CBS with FCC violation.
Yeah.
And guess what? Shannon's back over here in line to try to get a job. What's Scott doing in the lobby? Oh, he's filling out an application.
Did you like the movie, Scott? Do you like having this kind of a spotlight put on your story? Do you think it was well done?
One of the things, and he'll tell you this, is a couple of times I said, something we gotta do, gotta move this. It's a movie about a station, not about a person, and that's what it was. I think what a lot of people miss about this is the fact that it's almost a snapshot what was going on in the '80s, in the early '80s, and you see. We had so many different people from the '80s participate in it, and not just to talk about Z100, but to talk about what was going on in the city of New York. And you look at Geraldo Rivera talking about who he was in the fiber of the city, and all of a sudden, a radio station was able to a radio station was able to capture the spirit of the city. And all of a sudden, people would talk about it like it was like American Idol or something when Idol first started. And all of a sudden, you look. I look back and when the radio ratings come out now, nobody gives a rat's ass. They don't care. Back then, when the ratings came out, they announced it. It was the lead story on Channel 2, Channel 7, even Channel 11. Mm-hmm. They found out about it. All three of the major stations at that time talked about it, and you see it in the movie.
Yeah, the news clips, and you going on and doing interviews and stuff, and who is this guy?
Here's some Bobo, some guy, sipping a shot of a Canadian Club when he gets off, right? And all of a sudden, I'm on a plane to Chicago to be on Oprah's show.
It's one of the things,
what am I doing?
It's one of the things we discovered. I couldn't imagine a local radio guy being invited on that much television, as if he could make news.
Yeah, Good Morning America, all the shows.
Yeah. It came as a shock to someone that wasn't really paying attention to pop music at that point. I was a punk, so I wasn't thinking about what's Scott Shannon doing on Z100?
Yeah, I think I went on Regis Philbin's show 4 times.
Right.
He talked about me every day. Talked about the show
because he was listening to it.
Yeah. Or people that were listening to the show, because we did a takeoff on it. We had a song called He Wore a Dingleberry Beret. He wore a Dingleberry Beret. And we had one called, remember One Night in Bangkok? We had One Night with Regis. And a woman saying, I don't know how it happened. I wound up in bed with Regis Philbin. For God's sakes, I turned over and
and I got him talking. They got him talking about it.
That was what it was. It was just, but like I said, it was almost like a viral campaign. We didn't have any bumper stickers. We had no TV ads. We didn't have any commercials. The commercial on TV, like I said, till a year or two in.
Mm-hmm. Well, the movie's called From Worst to First, the true story of Z100.
And it was really good. It's really, really interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
How long are you guys on?
We're done
off.
now. We're done now. We go from 8 to almost 11.
I was hoping it'd be pretty soon.
Yeah. Yeah, you and the listeners both.
You can get the movie starting tomorrow on all VOD platforms, cable on demand, Apple, Amazon, Google Play, Vudu, Microsoft, everywhere that you get movies. It'll be available. And I mean, number one, it's just a fascinating story about New York, a fascinating story about radio, but also I feel like anybody that's been listening to what Jim and I have been doing over the years and years, Scott has kind of become a part of the foundation of that too. So to see this guy's story is amazing.
What time do you get up?
I get up, it's funny, we start at 8, I get up at 7:40.
Sam, can I come back in October?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we can feature this show.
Yeah.
Thank you, Scott. Thanks, Mitchell.
Thank you.